Hi guys, welcome to this afternoon's video. We're going to do a scenario that we've created just for fun, and this one is an opportunity for me to field my Confederation of the Rhine brigade for the first time. So we've got a British force approaching a French position based on a village on the French left flank and a small hill. Defending the hill, we've got a Confederation of the Rhine regiment and a regular French brigade occupying the village and the vineyards in front of the village, and there's a French brigade in reserve, and facing off against them we've got the light division, a British brigade and a Portuguese brigade. We'll just take a look at the troops in turn. Here we go, these are the French line. Occupying the vineyard. In the end of the village, these are all Perry figures, and these are my old Snapdragon buildings. I've got a few vignettes that I just got out for fun. And some of the French resting and relaxing before the attack comes in. So supporting the brigade in the vineyard, we got the French 6-pounder battery behind this hedge line. And then supporting the French, we've got our Confederation of the Rhine troops. So these are the new ones. We've got 2 battalions of Duchy of the Berg troops, supported by a couple of small regiments of dragoons. And thanks for the feedback after the last video. A couple of rules clarifications that I got wrong. Cavalry, if they're heavy cavalry, can't be campaign or battle. They're actually mutually exclusive categories. So you either are campaign, you are battle, or you are heavy, which I hadn't appreciated. So these dragoons actually will just be campaign, so not great troops. And they're supported by the Duchy of Berg half battery of foot artillery and a French brigade. And then further over on the right front flank of the Allied French forces, we've got my now 2 battalions of Nassau troops. 2 large battalions. And as I'm sure many of you have also done, I have Nassau and Berg for Confederation of the Rhine, because I can use both of those battalions in my 1815 games as allies of the Prussians and allies of the British if necessary. So facing off against these, we've got the British brigade on the right flank, 4 battalions strong. Okay, so we're rolling for ADC activation. The British have got 4 brigades, the British brigade, Portuguese, and then the 2 light brigades. French have also got 4, 3 infantry and 1 cavalry. We're going to give the British 1 reroll because they've got Picton as their divisional general. So we've got 3 active ADCs with a reroll, still 3 active ADCs, and for the French, only 1. Right, I'll do the ADC allocations. Charlie may be popping in and out for the game today. He's currently watching YouTube, and he said he might play, but he might not, so we'll see whether he joins us. Okay, so we're starting with the British, and they put infantry assault on this brigade on the right-hand flank. 4 battalions strong, so it looks quite an efficient use of the ADCs. We'll do a roll to see whether they activate. Get a 1, with a reroll, a 6. They're active. Right, now we're rolling for the Portuguese. They're active. The advanced light brigade is active, and then the rear light brigade is active. So British have got infantry assault off, and all their brigades are active. Right, so we go with the French. We've just got 1 reroll. We've put that on the artillery battery, which is attached to the brigade in the town. So we roll for them. They are active. The Confederation of the Rhine brigade is active. The reserve infantry brigade is active. And the cavalry is active. All right, both sides are active. And we'll roll for initiative. Okay, British have initiative. We'll crack on with movement in turn 1. Okay, we'll just do a recap of movement on turn 1. So the Nassau Brigade has stayed stationary. Its compatriots in the Confederation of the Nassau Regiment, that is, its compatriots in the Confederation of the Rhine Regiment have formed column really just to create a space, and the dragoons have sidestepped to get ready to advance into the gap between the two Confederation regiments and to potentially threaten the advancing British lines as a way to slow down the British assault. The British have thrown their skirmishers forward, and the Nassau skirmishers have responded by advancing as well to make sure that they weren't outranged by the British rifle-equipped troops with their range advantage. As we look at the British lines, the British battalions have moved forward in line, and the reserve brigade is starting to deploy to the rear of these lighter battalions. In the centre, the Portuguese have moved forward, as have the British line battalions, and again skirmisher screens have moved out on the far flank to start exchanging fire with one another. So that'll be it for movement, and we'll start with firing in turn 1. Okay, starting with the British, who will start with skirmisher fire. So we've got 4 bases there, that's 3 dice, add 1 for a 95th Rifles component, but shooting at skirmishers. So again, 3 dice, hitting 5s or 6s, nothing from these skirmishers. Right, we'll just move across the table to the British artillery battery. They're active, so they can indeed fire. They will fire long range at the Nassau battalion, and unfortunately, given the Nassau's formation, it looks like we've got bounce through against them. So we'll do that fire first. A 9 at long range is 1 casualty and a discipline test on the Nassau, and then 4, 5 or 6 for a bounce through. No bounce through at this stage, so that's 1 casualty on the Nassau. Okay, starting on the other flank, we've got the British skirmisher screen firing at the French skirmishers deployed behind the hedges, at least partially in cover. I think we've got 3 French, we'll have 3 French dice. I don't think enough of that skirmish screen are in cover. Over half of it are just out of cover. So we'll say the skirmishers here don't have cover, so it'll be 3 dice for the British to fire, but down to 2 because they're firing at a skirmish screen. That's 1 casualty on the British. Sorry, on the French. Okay, we'll now do the French firing. We'll start with the small battery because there's a FAQ on what you do with small sized batteries. So this is only a 6-gun battery for the French. So any shots of, and it's formally a half battery when you look at the Berg, as the French styled artillery batteries are normally 8 guns. So there'll be a -1 on any results of 7 or less from the this battery. It's going to fire long range at the 52nd as its closest threatening target. Get an 8, that'll just be 1 casualty at long range. We'll then fire the Nassau skirmish screen, again 2 dice, 1 casualty. So I'll just put 1 by both of those units, so remember to put the casualty markers on them. I think the skirmish screen from the Berg infantry are out of range. We'll then fire the main battery against the Portuguese, again also at long range, but full-size battery this time. We rolled an 8. At long range is 1 casualty against the Portuguese. We'll put that on, and then we'll fire the French skirmish screens. Okay, so we've got a 6-base skirmish screen. Actually, this is full line battalion, light battalion, deployed in skirmish order for the French. This one over here on the right. So they get 4 dice for 6 bases, but that will be reduced to 3 because their targets are skirmishers. We get 1 5 and 2 3s, so that's 1 casualty on the British skirmish screen. And then we've got the skirmish screen of the brigade. So that'll be 4 bases, -1 for firing at skirmishers. So 3 dice for 4 bases, -1 is 2. And we've got another 6. So that'll be 2 casualties on the British skirmish screen. And that's the end of turn 1. We'll mark up the casualties and move on to turn 2. Right, at the start of turn 2, the French have an easier option. They're going to Well, I was going to put re-rolls on a whole bunch of their units. I think I might put, we've got 3 French ADCs, I might put artillery assault while the battery is still fresh on the main French battery. So we will do that. We'll put artillery assault on them, and the British have put infantry assault on their light brigade. So we're trying to concentrate our options. So we'll roll for the French artillery first, and that's the brigade that includes the units that are in the vine field. Reroll. They are active. Rolling for the Confederation of the Rhine Brigade is hesitant. The dragoons are active, and the reserve French brigade is active. So we have one hesitant brigade, which is the Confederation. Right, then for the British, rolling for their light brigade first. A 5, infantry assault has gone off. Their reserves, a 5, they are advancing. The Portuguese, a 6, they're advancing, and then the other infantry brigade is hesitant. So both have one hesitant brigade. We'll now roll for initiative. Okay, French have 9, British have 6. So French have got initiative this turn. We'll start with their movement. Okay, movement's complete for turn 2 for the French. In the Confederation Brigade, the dragoons have continued to move through from reserve to take up position to threaten the British advance, and the Berg regiments have started to redeploy into a line behind them. The Skirmisher screens continue to exchange fire, and the British, as you can see, have started to deploy their reserves in line, and their reserve 95th Rifle Battalion continues to approach. In the centre, the Portuguese are also advancing forward, getting closer to the French artillery battery, which hasn't moved. And in the far right flank, the British hesitant brigade has just stuttered to a halt and will exchange some musketry with those skirmish screens. So we'll go on and do firing in turn 2. French go first. Okay, so we'll do the exchange of musketry first. So 2 dice for the French skirmish screen. Causes 1 casualty on the British opposite them. Then the Berg artillery battery on the hill will also have another go at the 71st Glasgow. The 52nd, I think, are more than 6 inches behind, so there'll be no bounce through. Long range shot, a 6. Now this is long range, and that's a small battery, and the result is less than 7, so the 6 gets reduced to a 5. At long ranges, that is half a casualty, so no difference. And we roll a 3, so the 3 does not convert to anything. So no effect from that. Then as we look across, we've got the French skirmisher fire, which we'll do over here. So we got a set of 6. That's 4 dice, 3 dice because the target is the British skirmishers. 1 casualty on the British skirmishers. And then we've got a unit of 4 who can now start firing at the full Portuguese. So they will roll 3 dice against the Portuguese, and 1 casualty on the Portuguese. So I think that was 1 on the skirmishers and 1 on the Portuguese. We'll mark that up. Okay, and most importantly for the French, we've got their artillery battery firing at long range, but it is on artillery assault. So let's see what they get. They get a 7 and a 6 on their casualty dice. So the 6 will cause 1 extra casualty, and the 7 at long range is half a casualty. So let's roll to see if that converts. No, it doesn't, so just 1 further casualty on the Portuguese. Okay, so we'll kick off and we'll do return fire from the British skirmishers down here. So these ones, 2 dice. Although we have the 95th Rifles, I keep needing to remember that, so they get a bonus dice. So there'll be 3 dice against the Nassau here. That's 2 casualties on the Nassau. Dice there for a second. Then as we move across, we've got the skirmish screen on the far side. That is been reduced to only 3 bases for the British, but that's still 3 dice firing at skirmishers reduced to 2. So that causes no casualties. That was a 4 and a 3. Right, and then the British artillery battery on the hill will again have a, well, I think its closest threat now is the dragoons, and it would get some bounce through against the dragoons. So British artillery battery on the hill will target the dragoons. It wasn't hesitant, so it can target them. That's a 10. That's not bad at long range. That's 2 casualties in a discipline test. We'll check for the bounce through and a bounce through casualty. Just pop those onto the units, and we'll roll the discipline test for the dragoons. They are a regular unit. A 12, they're absolutely fine. Just in terms of unit status, my Confederation of the Rhine are counting as reservists. My French Infantry Brigade in the hedgerows and the vine fields are also counting as reservists. The French Brigade in reserve is a line brigade, and the dragoons are line. For the British, all their troops are line, other than the lights, who are either veterans or, for the 52nd, are elite. Okay, I think that's firing complete, and we'll move on to turn 3. Okay, so the French only got 2 ADCs this turn. They've allocated them, one to the dragoons and one for the infantry brigade with the artillery attached to get a reroll on both. Rolling for the dragoons, active, and the artillery, hesitant but with a reroll, active. Confederation of the Rhine Regiment, active, and Reserve Regiment, active, so all French brigades are active. Then for the British, we've put infantry assault on the Portuguese, and a reroll on the hesitant brigade in the that's attacking the vine field. So starting with them, they are active. The Portuguese are active. The forward light brigade is hesitant, and the rearmost light brigade is hesitant. Right, we'll mark those up. And let's just do initiative. The French, on a remarkable roll of 3, do indeed have the initiative. Okay, so the French are going to start their spoiling tactics and have declared a target for a charge. Their dragoons are going in against the 71st Highlanders Light Battalion, who are a veteran unit. So first we have to check the range, check that it's less than 21, which is the 15-inch cavalry moon plus the 6-inch charge bonus, which it is, it's about 17 inches. So we have to roll a reaction test for the skirmishers. If they get ridden down by the cavalry, they evaporate, I think, and we'll just check that. But if they pass the discipline test, they will fall back. I assume they will count as veterans, because the battalions they've come from are veterans. 3, that's a fail. So I think that skirmish screen is wiped out. Right, now let's roll, see if the 71st can form square. Yes, that was a roll of a 7, so they have successfully formed square. We'll just do those moves. Okay, we have charge resolution. Very much expect this to be a repulse of the charge. But the French do have support. British form square. You can't do a defensive volley if you form square in the same time. So yeah, British get 9, French get 7. They can do a reroll. 6, that won't be enough. Whatever the modifiers are, they will bounce off. We will go and do the movement for the cavalry. Okay, taking a bit of an overview, the French to some extent have achieved their purpose. Their dragoons charged in, bounced off the square, both took 1 casualty, but we have forced the British to stop, form square, and then they've got the conundrum of what they do about that dragoons unit, and remembering their brigades are hesitant, so they can't fire at long range with their artillery, so we can't use that to drive those dragoons away, and we did lose the British skirmish screen that was overrun by the cavalry on this flank. So we move across the board. We see that the Portuguese are still steady at advancing, haven't taken many casualties here, and indeed the British brigade on the right flank has now moved off the hill and is starting to threaten the French lines over on this flank opposite the orchard. Some of the French skirmish screens have been driven back, so they will not necessarily prevent the British volleying the infantry battalions that they're masking. So we'll do an exchange of fire this turn, and we'll see how far the attack on the right flank progresses and how much damage the French artillery can start doing against the Portuguese as they get ever closer. Alright, we'll go on with firing in turn 3. Okay, we'll start with French firing from the right flank. Firstly, we've got the Nassau skirmish screen. They move forward slightly, but still within command range of their brigade commander. They're going to open fire at the 95th Rifles. They get 3 dice, because they're firing with 4 bases and that against the range unit. Get 1 casualty on the British. Right, we'll We'll try and roll blue dice for the French. As we look across, we can see the rest of the skirmish screen has also moved forward just over the hedge line to get the Portuguese into sight. So we'll roll one more dice for them. Yep, one more dice. So that's one casualty against the Portuguese. We will then fire the Berg artillery on the hill, firing at long range. It will fire against the square. It gets 2 extra combat dice for long range fire, for at any range firing against the square. So we'll just do that again. Here we go. So we get a 7 and a 6 and a 3. So the 6 and a 3 are the casualty dice, so that's 1 extra casualty, and a 7 at long range is half a casualty. I don't think there are any adjustments to the absolute artillery fire for the target being in square. No, it's just 2 combat dice. And as a 7 or less, we have to take 1 off because it's a small battery there, but that's still half a casualty. So we'll roll for the half casualty. 4, and we made it this time. So that's 2 more casualties on the 71st square. Okay, now firing the main French battery against the Portuguese. Effective range, that's only a 5. I don't think that's going to be anything. That's 1 casualty. 1 casualty on the Portuguese. And then we'll fire its skirmish screen against the other Portuguese battalion. We've actually got 6 there. 6 bases firing this time, so that's 4 combat dice. So we'll see if we do anything with those. That's 1 5 and 1 6. So that's 3 actual. That's 2 casualties. So that's 1 casualty against 1 Portuguese battalion and 2 against the other. Put the dice down for a second, so I don't forget, because it's very easy to. Alright, and then we will fire the skirmish screen against the British on the right flank. Again, we've got 3 dice, because it's a 4 base screen. And we roll 1 5 and 2 4s. So that's 1 casualty against the British. That's the extent of French firing this turn. I'll mark up those casualties and then we'll go on to the return fire from the British. Okay, so we'll start with the fire against the Nassau Skirmishers. The 95th Rifles will open fire first. So despite being a veteran battalion, because they moved... no, they were hesitant. They haven't moved this turn. So this will be a superior volley, but -2 because they're firing at skirmishers. That was a 4 and a 1. So only a 5 for superior volley. And at -2 is a 3 or less, so they lose fire discipline. Then the 71st will also fire. This will be at half effect because they're in square. They roll even worse, they roll a 4, that'll be nothing. So both British veteran battalions have lost fire discipline this time. I don't think anything else is in range. We'll go to the Portuguese. They did move this turn. They will fire an inferior volley against the French skirmishers that are harassing them. 5. They also lose fire discipline. British skirmishers will exchange fire with that same skirmish screen. They cause 2 casualties against the skirmish screen. And then the furthest British battalion could do an inferior volley against the French behind the hedge. I think we will do that because we don't expect to be attacked, so we don't see fire discipline as a major risk. Fire discipline is really only a problem if you're going to get charged next turn and when it affects your charge return fire. Otherwise you simply have to remain, yes, you have to remain stationary, so we will, I think it's remain stationary, to recover fire discipline. We will just check that. But we will do a volley from the furthest British battalion. Hey, that's quite good. That was a 9. Okay, so they are 9. An inferior volley is 2 casualties in a discipline test. It is reduced to 2 casualties because the target is in cover and the skirmishers will take 1 and the line battalion for the French in the far distance will also take 1 casualty. So we'll go and mark those up. Okay, turn 4 and we've allocated ADCs. Given that they've got a fire discipline result on their front brigade, the British on the left-hand side are delaying their assault this turn and have put artillery assault onto the secondmost brigade to help it get extra, and a re-roll to help move the 92nd 95th Rifle Battalion up in support and cause some casualties on the French opposition before they go in. And we've also put a re-roll for the British on their attacking brigade on the right flank. For the French, we've gone for a re-roll and an artillery assault on their brigade in the village. So we'll start with the French. For the brigade in the village, needs that re-roll. It's hesitant. The artillery assault doesn't go off. That's a bit of a shame for the French. We'll roll for the dragoons. They're hesitant. Confederation regiment, that's hesitant. And the reserve regiment is active. So we've got 3 hesitant French brigades and -3 on their dice roll. Only one who's active is their infantry reserve. Right, we'll roll for the British. Okay, starting with their right-hand light battalion. I'm rolling 2 dice. They are active. The rear one with artillery assault on it is hesitant, but it's got a reroll. It is hesitant as well. There's clearly a shortage of ammunition in this part of Spain today, so neither of the artillery assaults have gone up, and we won't be able to bring those British reserves forward. The Portuguese battalion in the centre is also hesitant, and then the furthest battalion is got a reroll, active. So we have 2 hesitant British brigades and 3 French. Let's just roll for initiative then. Okay, the British have initiative. I'll mark up hesitant brigades. Okay, so we've completed movement for turn 4. Not a lot going for the British, I'm afraid, as their left flank's tied down with the units who've now restored fire discipline, but remain stationary. And on the far flank, the brigade has moved forward slightly. Its left-hand wing has moved up to the hedge line, so they're going to start exchanging volleys with the French defending the vineyard. So we'll see how that goes. Portuguese also were hesitant, so unable to move forward towards the artillery battery. So there'll be quite a lot of firing on the right flank. Left flank will remain pretty static. Let's crack on with firing in turn 4. Okay, we'll start with our firing in the vineyard. So firstly, the British will open fire. I'll take the smoke off in a second. They're no longer under fire discipline because they've stayed still. They will fire a superior volley through the skirmishers at the French line in cover. So this will be a shot at -1. That's a 6. So that becomes a 5. Superior volley is 1 casualty, which we will take on the skirmisher screen. Okay, the next battalion will fire at the French line, also in cover. They've moved up, so they will be doing an inferior volley because they moved this turn. They rolled a 5 on an inferior volley. I'm sure will be nothing, and they're in cover as well. So that becomes a 4. That's a loss of fire discipline. Okay, this is becoming a recurring theme. And I'll allow the British skirmishers who were sandwiched in the middle there just 1 shot against the French skirmish screen. 3, because their French has been compressed, so they achieve nothing with that. And we'll fire the Portuguese battalion against the French skirmisher screen, so this will be at -2. They are stationary this turn, so this will be a standard volley at -2. Okay, we rolled a 7, so that becomes a 5. For a standard volley is 1 casualty against the French skirmish screen. Put a 1 on there, so don't forget to take those casualties. And I think that's the end of British firing for this turn, because their artillery battery is unfortunately hesitant. We'll do the French return fire. So we've got the Nassau skirmish screen going against the 95th Rifles. And that's pretty good. That's 2 casualties from skirmisher fire. We'll check to see if that's a destiny test. So that's 2 on the 95th Rifles. I can put this down because I will forget otherwise. Right, 2 casualties on the 95th Rifles. We will then fire the French artillery at long range. I think it's fine, I don't think they were hesitant. We will also fire at the square, so we get 2 bonus dice, but it is a long range shot. So 7 at long range is half a casualty, and another 1 because we rolled a 4 on the casualty dice. So that's just 1 casualty on the square from the 52nd. And I have to take -1 off. Yeah, but we only got it from the casualty dice anyway, so that will make no difference. So I'll just go and mark those 2 up. Okay, and now we'll fire at effective range with the French artillery battery against the Portuguese. That was a 7. So at effective range, that is 1 casualty against the Portuguese. and then we'll fire the French Skirmisher screen against the other Portuguese battalion. They are 4 dice from that screen, and 1 reroll. And that's just 1 casualty against the other Portuguese battalion, so they'll both take 1 casualty. Firing our skirmish screen at the British battalion, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, so there'll be 3 dice. That's 1 casualty against the British one here. And then the final shooting of the round will be this French infantry battalion, which is stationary, so it'll fire a standard volley against the British in cover in front of it, so that'll be a -1. 10, that's quite good, so that becomes a 9. Standard volley is 3 casualties and a discipline test. So we'll put 3 against them. And then we'll roll our discipline test. This is just a standard battalion. 8. That's fine. They stay. Alright, that's it for turn 4. We'll be back with turn 5 in a bit. Okay, we're on with turn 5. Both sides have got all their ADCs. The French are going to deploy 3 on their brigade defending the village to get artillery assault off, and they're going to put a re-roll on their cavalry, see whether we can use that effectively this turn. The British are going for re-rolls on all brigades, so hopefully they can get their attack going. We'll start with the British. Starting with the brigade assaulting the village are active. The Portuguese brigade with its re-roll is active. The light brigade in square is active, and then the light brigade coming up in reserve is active. All British units are active. For the French, the brigade defending the village with artillery assault is active. The Confederation of the Rhine Brigade is active. The cavalry with the re-roll is active, and their reserve brigade is also active. So we've got a straight roll-off for initiative. Let's see where we end up. The British have initiative. On we go with turn 5. And same tactic from the French. The 95th Rifles have been charged again by the French Dragoons. Let's see if they pass their discipline test to try and form square. They were definitely coming from more than 9 inches away, so they get to try. 4. That is a fail, even though they're veterans. So they failed to form square, and they are unformed. Alright, we'll see what happens now. Okay, so this is looking pretty tough for the 95th, because they are in line, receiving the square, and they're unformed. They're going to take a modifier of -3 to their result, and it's -4, and they get 1 offset because they're veteran status. Let's have a roll for the British. They roll 5, and the French roll 5. So that's charge at 3+. That's cavalry versus infantry. Cavalry will melee with a land, defenders will melee unformed. Alright, we'll move on to that in the combat phase. Okay, so we've completed movement for turn 5. The British have taking the opportunity to form 2 squares here because of the threat of the French Dragoons. We'll see how the 95th Rifles do, having been charged this turn. Prognosis doesn't look too great for them. The other 95th Rifles battalion has moved up and used its veteran status to also change formation, so it also went into square and will bring some artillery fire hopefully down against some of the Dragoons from the hill. In the centre, the Nassau remain unmoved where they were, holding the right end of the French line. The Berg infantry have shuffled slightly to the left and moved forward slightly, anticipating their gun battery perhaps retiring and them taking their place at the hedge line. Portuguese continue to advance. Their front 2 battalions are both taking 4 casualties, so they're starting to suffer a bit. Could be serious now as the French artillery opens up with canister this turn. And over on the far side, the British, you can see, are moving forward. The right hand of this brigade has moved forward and up to the next hedge line. The French pulled back slightly to avoid getting pummeled too bad and try and preserve their battalions. And on the left hand side of that brigade, the French stayed where they were, and the British battalion will open up this turn with a superior volley. Alright, we'll move on to firing. Let's see how things go there. Okay, so we'll start with the British opening fire. Firstly, the 71st in square will open fire. This will be a superior. Will it be a superior volley or will it? No, it just says you halve casualties if you're in square. It doesn't say you do it as an inferior volley. You have to have moved or lost fire discipline. And we have done neither of those because we formed square last turn. So a half effect volley against the dragoons. That's pretty good. That's a 9. For a superior volley, it's 4 casualties and a discipline test. So that'll be 2 casualties against this second. And I'll put another dice beside them to remember that we've got a discipline test to do as a result of that volley from the square. Alright, we've got some 95th rifles hiding in the woods here. There'll be 3 dice normally for their firing, and they'll get a 4th because they're the 95th rifles. They lose 1 for firing at the Nassau Skirmishers. So let's see how that plays through. Pretty good. 2 casualties against the Nassau. And I think... No, the only casualties suffered previously had been from artillery fire. Alright, and that was on the main battalion. Okay, so we'll now fire at long range the battery on the hill against the same dragoon regiment. See if again we can cause more casualties on them. Pretty good, a 9 again. So that's artillery at long range is another casualty and another discipline test. So another casualty on them and another discipline test on them. We'll do that one second. Right, any more firing on this flank? I don't think so. We will then move on and fire the British battalions over on the other flank. We will just go around the table and do the firing on the other side. Okay. We will start over here. So the British, let's have a look. These are the Cambridgeshire 30th Foot. So the 30th Foot will open fire against their opposing French battalion. They haven't moved this turn, so this will be a superior volley, but at -1 because the French are in cover. That's a 10. That's pretty good. So that'll be a 9. Superior volley is 4 casualties and a discipline test. Wow. So plenty of discipline tests on the French this turn. Hopefully their morale can hold up and they'll get through. Right, that's their firing. And then we've got firing through a skirmish screen, but they'll simply take the first casualty because they're too close to their parent battalion. This will be an inferior volley because the British battalion here, and again, let's have a look at this one. This one is the 69th South Links. So South Lincolnshire open fire against the French. No cover this time. Whoa! Hang on a second, I'll just go and retrieve the dice. Right, we'll just roll this one again. Get a 5, that won't do very much. So that's an inferior volley. 5 will be fire discipline of recruits, but the British aren't recruits, so no results from that. Alright, and we've got 1 skirmisher base to fire, which will fire at the French. No, that doesn't do anything. I think that's it. We'll mark that up and I'll do some discipline tests. Okay, so we'll start with the discipline tests down here. As you may recall, these are reservist battalions. So now they've taken 4 casualties, they will be taking it as recruits. So let's see what we do. Attention, 7. I think it's a -1, so they go unformed. Not too disastrous, but won't help them if they get charged next turn. Okay, and we're going to do the discipline tests on those dragoons who took the multiple hits from the artillery fire and the musketry. So doing the musketry first, they were only on 1 casualty, so this took them to 3, so no penalty on this one. They are line troops. They pass. Then on the second discipline test, this will be at -1 because they're now on 4 casualties. 8 -1 is 7, they're fine. So the French survive the discipline tests on this flank. Okay, so now we're doing the French firing this turn. So we'll start with our Confederation of the Rhine Brigade. And my Nassau Skirmishers are going to have a go at that square. It looks a pretty inviting target. 4 bases, 3 shots. No casualties. Alright, we've got 2 lots of Berg Skirmishers the other side of those trees, just fallen back behind the fence line. They will open fire, they get 2 dice against the advancing Portuguese. 3 and a 2, again, no effect from that. Alright, we'll then do the skirmishers against the other Portuguese battalion. You've got 6 bases there. So for 6 bases, I think it's 4 dice. Let's just check. Yeah, 4 combat dice going against the other Portuguese battalion. Right, hopefully that carried on recording. It just flashed up a message saying my operating system needed to be updated. Alright, let's do those. That's 2 casualties on that Portuguese battalion. I will mark that up in a second. I'll just place there to remember. And then we'll do the artillery battery against the right-hand Portuguese battalion, which is slightly in advance, so it is the closest target. 3. At close range will be nothing. That's indeed a fatigue casualty on the artillery crew. Right, we'll go and mark those up, and then we'll do the final shots from the French on the far flank. Okay, so for this French battalion here, they unfortunately have gone unformed as a result of taking their volley this turn. So this will be at -2 and then -1 because they've got 4 casualties. 6, -1 is 3, that'll be a fire discipline test. And then we'll fire the French skirmishers against the British in cover down here. That's 1 casualty to mark up on the British. I'll put the fire discipline on and then we'll go and do our hand-to-hand against the 95th. Okay, so not as bad as it could have been. I do wonder whether I should have perhaps stayed in line and tried to volley away these weak French cavalry. So the 95th Rifles start with 5 dice. They lose a dice for being unformed, but they gain 1 for being a morale grade better than the cavalry. So they start with 4 dice. The French cavalry start with 4 dice. Then they're a small unit, so they lose 1, but they gain 1 for meleeing with Elan. Alright, let's do the rolls. We'll do the French first. Wow, that might be bad news for the 95th Rifles. That is 5 casualties. I think it's pretty much all over. We need a startling roll from the 95th. See if they can defend this. Oh my gosh, now that is pretty amazing. 5 casualties on both sides. That's a draw. So, cavalry, infantry. Cavalry versus infantry. Infantry stand. Cavalry return to their own lines. Alright, we'll go do that and mark the casualties up. Okay, turn 6. Probably the last move we're going to do for this evening. The French have got 2 ADCs, the British have got 3. The French are going to go and they really want initiative. They need to think about whether they pull that artillery back because it's likely to get charged, but I think it's just about out of range, so perhaps 1 more turn, but certainly want to try and get initiative this turn. So we're putting a re-roll on the infantry defending the village and the dragoons. The British would also want initiative, so they're putting re-rolls on their 3 attacking brigades. So we'll start with the French. The French troops in the village with a re-roll are active. The Confederation brigade is hesitant. The dragoons are active and the reserve brigade is active. So we're hesitant on the Confederation. In fact, I've still left the marker on there from a previous term, so that's fine. Okay, right, well now we'll go for the British. Let's roll these. So starting with the brigade attacking the village on the far right flank are active. The Portuguese with the re-roll are active. The front British brigade is active. And then the rear British brigade is also active. All active for the British. They get an initiative of only 4. The French on -1 get 7. French have initiative. On we go with turn 6. We'll start with charges, which I'm not sure there will be any. Indeed, no charges from the French, but the British will have a think. Okay, so a couple of charges on this flank. Just to drive the assault forward. Firstly, the far right British battalion charged over the hedge line, mainly to drive off the skirmishers, so it had no intention of having to take the extra casualty to do a charge into the French line battalion, but simply wanted to drive away the French skirmishers so it can start volleying with superiority into the French line. So it did its charge. The skirmishers have passed their discipline test, so they haven't been destroyed by being contacted by the charge, but have fallen back behind their own battalion. And then the 2nd British Battalion has also charged in, and it is looking to take advantage of the fact that this French battalion has lost fire discipline. So we will do the defensive fire for the skirmishers and apply those casualties, and for the French battalion that suffered from fire discipline, and then move on to the charge tests. Okay, so it'll be an inferior volley for the French battalion because they've lost fire discipline. They will shoot at the British battalion charging in, and they get a 7 with an inferior volley. Mediocre result. 7 is 1 casualty on the British. That won't be enough, I don't think, to stop the charge. We'll now do the charge results for that combat. Okay, so that volley was useful in that although it only caused 1 casualty, it did push that British battalion up to 4. So that'll have an impact on the charge results. And both the British battalion is supported and the French battalion is supported, although I'll just check whether that support's valid, because although the British haven't charged it, it certainly is in combat range. So I'll just check the rules for supports for the French. But we'll roll the initial charge results. So the French have got a 9, British have got a 3. Okay, the British will definitely do a re-roll of the 1 with their support. 4, not a lot better. Alright, we'll check the rules for support and see whether both the French and the British are entitled to a re-roll. Okay, I think I'm correct in this. The British clearly can't provide support because they themselves did a charge, and I don't think the French can provide support because they do have an opposing unit within 9 inches. So we'll go with that straight roll off, with the British having the benefit of a rear support. So the French got a 9 and the British got a 4, so I don't think that charge is going to go home. The British are no morale grade better than the French down here. French are unformed, so that takes the 9 down to a 7. The British go down to a 3 because of their casualty. I think that's it. I'll just have a slightly closer look at the modifiers and be back in a sec. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a difference of 4. The attackers have to retire with 1 casualty, and their supports will go back with them. Okay, movement's complete in turn 6. French Dragoons have retired back. They've done a step back, and the other one had to retreat to its own lines to pull back and consider what they do next. They both suffered heavy casualties, 1-8, 1-4, so rather than just recklessly charging in again, where I think they may come a cropper, they're going to wait for their opportunity to come in and let the artillery have a bit more of a go against these advancing British battalions. The Berg and the Nassau have remained where they are. Just the other side of this woodland, you can see that the Portuguese have now pretty much reached the French gun line. So they've got some cover from the hedge line just in front of the guns, and there'll be a heavy exchange of fire over that. On the far side we'll see some gunfire exchanged. The British skirmishers and French skirmishers are continuing to pop away at one another. And over here, close up. Here we go, the 71st Light continue, resumed their advance. The second lot of rifle skirmishers are starting to redeploy onto their flank of the British formation. And the 52nd is now moving up in support, with the 95th Rifles finally joining it. And the other 2nd Battalion, 95th Rifles, has done a voluntary retire. It was unformed, so actually it should still be unformed. But they've done a voluntary retire, took an extra casualty to get themselves out to the far line, so we don't suffer an easy brigade withdrawal to the French. They've suffered 9 casualties now as a result of their cavalry attack, and we're really lucky to survive it. Alright, we'll crack on with some shooting in turn 6, starting with the French skirmishers. Okay, so 3 dice against the 71st. It's 1 casualty on the 71st. Marker there. We'll then fire the 2 skirmishers against the Portuguese. That is 1 casualty against the Portuguese. We will then fire the other lot of skirmishers against the Portuguese. There are 4 dice for that one. That's 2 more casualties against the Portuguese. Okay, from the reverse side of the table, we'll now fire the French artillery battery, I think, against the advancing Portuguese. It'll go to the one advancing on the left. We get a 9. That'll do quite a lot at close range. 9 at close range is 3 casualties and a discipline test. Final bit of firing, we have this French battalion here firing at the advancing British who've just come through the hedge line. This will be a standard volley. Wow, 12, that's good. That's going to cause a fair amount of chaos, and we get a destiny test. Okay, so we roll the discipline test for the British battalion first. They're on 8 casualties now, so this is at -2. We've rolled a 9, so they are actually fine. We'll roll the destiny test. It's a 9. Okay, let's just have a look at what a 9 is. Okay, on a 9, the French battalion can either melee with the land, change formation, or recover 2 casualties. It had only suffered 1, but we'll take that as a benefit of our fabulous volley. So French are doing well on this flank. Okay. Okay, and now rolling the discipline for the French battalion. This will be at -2 because they're now at 10 casualties. A 5, -2 is a 3. That Portuguese battalion can't take it. 10 casualties, devastating volley in the front. It breaks and flees. Okay, so we'll now commence the French firing. No, the French have fired. It's now the British firing. So no skirmishers on this flank. British artillery battery will have a go at the foremost Nassau battalion as the closest target. Artillery at long range, that's still not bad. That's a 9. Long range is 1 casualty and a discipline test. So we'll put that, we'll mark that with those dice. And do the next one. So the Portuguese battalion that survived the skirmisher fire will now do a volley. I think it'll volley against the artillery battery, so that will be at -2, I believe. Let's just have a look. Yeah, -2. All right. So rolling for the Portuguese at -2. I think there'll also be another -1 because of the number of casualties they've taken. I'll check that in a second. A 9. Now that will be an inferior volley because they moved up this turn. That's 2 casualties and a discipline test. But it's -2 for a deployed battery, -1 for casualties. So on a 6, it's 1 casualty on the artillery battery. And we'll just check the casualties to make sure it's no worse than that. Okay, so that's 1 casualty on the artillery battery. I'll put this down to remind myself. And then we will fire the... No, I think that's it. We'll fire the British skirmishers at the French skirmishers screen. 1 casualty on the French skirmishers. Alright, that's it for this evening. It's very dark outside. And the family will be reappearing shortly to watch Strictly Come Dancing. So I will spare you that on in the background. And I'll pick up and finish off the game tomorrow.